Hey, I'm Max, you're watching Crash Course World History, and today we'll be learning about William Shakespeare. Possibly the greatest writer of all time, often called the preeminent dramatist, he transformed what people did with theatre. He had a major effect on the English language, creating countless new words and contributing to the grammatical structure we have today. Nearly every high schooler reads his comedies and tragedies, many of which are so influential they continue to have an effect on literature to this day. We'll learn what made his work so groundbreaking, the effect they had and continue to have on the arts, and most importantly, the incredible role of literature in creating culture. Oh, and his marriage to Anne Hathaway. I don't know how the song goes. He was born in 1564 to a prosperous glovemaker and the daughter of a wealthy landowner. He was the older brother to 5 siblings and was lucky to reach adulthood at all. He had 2 sisters before him, both of whom succumbed to the plague. His father was well off socially, and his position as the Chamberlain of the Stratford Borough qualified his children for a free education at the Stratford Grammar School. The school likely focused heavily on Latin. He worked intensively on the study, memorization, and performance of Latin classics. He was lucky to have this education, as both of his parents were illiterate, and he stayed in the school until age 15. A few years after he left school, he married Anne Hathaway, who was already pregnant with their first child. No, Eli, not that Anne Hathaway. That Anne Hathaway. They married in 1582, when he was 18 and she was 26. After marrying, she spent the rest of her life in Stratford. 3 years later, they gave birth to twins, and in 1585, William moved to London to pursue a career in theatre, or to escape the noise. He died on April 23, 1616, the same day as his birth, 52 years later. His only son, Hamnet, died at age 11, leaving no direct descendants of the bard. But his effect on the world lay not in his life or legacy, but in the works he created and their timeless plots, finding relevance in every generation since his death.
Let's head over to the Thought Bubble for an overview of his works. One of his best-known tragedies is the classic love story of Romeo and Juliet. The play is about 2 households locked in political and social conflict, and what unravels when the 2 children of the families fall in love. It has major themes on fate and love, but more importantly begs questions about the role of the individual. Romeo's relationship between his male friends begs questions about what it means to be a man. Juliet's arranged marriage and its subsequent unraveling carries an important thread on the role of love in politics. As is the pattern in Shakespeare's plays, the series of coincidences and poor choices made by the characters leads to pretty much everyone dying. Julius Caesar, another of his tragedies, questions what really makes someone deserving of power. Shakespeare's telling of the shift from republic to an imperial Rome mirrors the Elizabethan era's trend toward monarchical power. In an age of censorship, this was an effective way for Shakespeare to make such a heavy statement. Perhaps the morals of masculinity's complex influence on power is something we can still learn from today. After all, as Shakespeare is not so subtly pointing out, everyone died that time too.
Storytelling as we know it today stems primarily from Shakespeare's works. He began to tell universal stories, and theatre began to become a populist art form. Affordable access to the arts meant Shakespeare had to appeal to a wider audience than playwrights before him, who only had to appeal to the rich who could actually afford to see their plays. He disregarded traditional genres, deftly mixing comedy with tragedy, but the biggest change he developed was a new type of plot. He created complex characters, capable of making choices to drive the story forward. Many argue that this specific technique is what has kept his stories relevant so long after they were originally written. While other plays faded with the context for which they were designed, his have prevailed, not because of the actual settings or plots, but because of the way the characters make us feel. It's time for the open letter, but first, let's see what's in the secret compartment today. A2 Eli, skim milk? You know I'm lactose intolerant. An open letter to the English language. In all of his works, Shakespeare used a monumental 17,677 of your words, but of those, 10% were words he used for the first time. In his multitudinous diction, he first used words such as skim milk, epileptic, and lonely. He used your words so dexterously, so it's not completely baseless to say he's the biggest contributor to the language you are today. To him, all your words were fair play, and though he may have left many members of his audience muttering, "It's Greek to me," he was never frugal with how he used you. In your salad days, you were hardly a pedantic language, but his savagery with words helped you metamorphose into the lustrous tongue we speak today. Everywhere you look, there's references to Shakespeare. Even common words and phrases you use on a day-to-day basis can be first found in his works, be it in one of the countless parodies and modified versions of his plots, Italian operas, or even wittily titled pornos, Shakespeare is always well represented. Romeo and Juliet become a West Side Story, the three witches in Hamlet become the three trombones in Duke Ellington's Such Sweet Thunder, and As You Like It becomes, well, As You Like It. His plays have traveled around the globe after being translated into every major language. They provide an illumination of the human experience that allow every culture to look at themselves a little closer. It's no coincidence we read his tragedies in our English class. They teach us about ourselves. So how did the child of two illiterate parents become the most influential playwright in Western culture? How did a Renaissance actor get his plays into the backpacks of every single high schooler 400 years after his death? In Crash Course World History, we avoid looking at individuals, because history almost always occurs in the throngs of common people. It's ironic, however, that it took one man to bring theater to the general population. Many would argue that no individual has had such an impact as Shakespeare, and few would argue that he never even really existed, but that's a topic for another time. His sheer genius allowed him to emote universal human experience from the stage. Perhaps we keep telling his stories because we keep living them, or maybe it's because no one can quite make us feel like he could. So when people preach great man history, remember the greatest man of all was a writer and a poet. Remember how his talent and authenticity changed the world.